I mean, there's really, you got 12 notes, do whatever you want with them. Just like Eddie Van Halen said. And that's what's happening. People are making up, think outside of the box. That's the way it should be. Unless you want to sound like everyone else because everything's been done already. I mean, look at what year we're in.
It's weird because some bands, they had their the blindfolds on, had to be this tight, had to be that tight. For me, I've always thought of it as metal, being universal. I like a lot of different types of music. But for the most part, when I saw that changing, it was special for like, let's just say Florida metal. You knew where it came from, that style. When you heard California metal, you heard, the thrash elements and stuff like that. So it was cool because, you grab it all. It would be boring if everyone sounded the same. So you'd have to have that little variety.
That happened probably while I was still a large part where I was recovering. I know the whole Floridian thing I attribute to Chuck, and then later like Morbid Angel and Obituary, and I don't know if that's just a geographical thing or because the people around you are the people that influence you. I mean, just like Exodus and influenced much of Possessed, right? Of course, you get external factors like, and I pull everything back to myself because I can't really speak for anybody else. But I know that bands I really loved the melodies and the intricate guitar work of like Merciful Fate, or bands like even Raven or Nasty Savage, or So I don't know why it became like that, but it definitely did affect it. I think that Chuck really turned people onto that Floridian death metal tone.
Obviously, I was a kid, back then. I wasn't really part of any of that, but like it's bands like Morbid Angel, basically bands from Florida, were like heavily influenced by that, Chuck and all that. So I think it became kind of like a competition to like be heavier and faster and better riffs and better songs and then blast beats got incorporated, as part of the need, or I don't really know if it was like a competition, kind of like and I need to be faster in your band or whatever. But even if it was subconscious, for everybody, I think that pushed it.
It was regionally, like you're saying, you could tell the difference. You could tell, Obituary was definitely Florida. You could distinguish just from the sound of the bands what region they were from. For example, Sadist, Possessed, Bay Area, Exodus, everybody, they just stylistically had a very similar thing going on, And then Florida was completely different, and, LA, like, much we were talking about.
The California, area has a sound, and we have the Florida Tampa scene, and even South Florida. It was like death metal got a little more brutal, like in the late 80s, but then like you said, you had New York, then you had Suffocation, which became the new extra brutal, like that was like the birth of brutal death metal, and Immolation, Incantation also. So, I mean, why all these regional differences is kind of hard to tell, but I feel like that's kind of like, seeing like, oh, look what these guys in Florida are doing, like we can probably do it heavier, or like, oh, they like certain like aspects of a sound in a band and they go with it, and develop a whole new sound by mistake,
But there are differences, like you say. New York is kind of more moshy, in a way, and Florida is, less of the spikes and the show of it, but more I don't know, a lot of thought goes into it, or there's some bands like Cannibal Corpse that sing about like, the organs and guts and so I think that everybody really tried to put their own spin on a good thing, And I can't speak for them because, like I say, every band is its own animal. While I may have been the first, I certainly didn't create everything. I mean, I was probably like the first person to create the term and create the style, but where it went from then, I would just say is geographical, the people around that influence them and the bands that turn them on.
We turn the world insane, like a legion straight from hell, that quells the Christian soul.